1. A small hole sinks a ship. On the slopes of Long's Peak in Colorado stands a giant ancient tree, which has been left with just a stump after enduring severe damage. Botanists estimate this tree is around 400 years old. It was already there when Columbus landed in El Salvador and only halfway through its life when the Pilgrims began their settlement in Plymouth. Throughout its 4 centuries of existence, it was struck by lightning 14 times and survived countless snowstorms and tempests. Eventually, it was hollowed out by a group of insects that chewed through its bark layer by layer, continuously gnawing at it every day. Gradually, the ancient tree became rotten and fell. Thus, a colossal tree that withstood time, lightning, and storms was finally brought down by tiny insects so small they could be crushed between 2 fingertips. Many of us, too, have triumphed over life's lightning and storms, overcoming upheavals, only to be defeated by petty worries and trivial anger. These minor troubles are like those tiny insects that can destroy our lives day by day. Therefore, never let these little pests creep into your soul when you can easily crush them with just a pinch of your fingers. 2. The destination. It was a foggy morning on July 4, 1952, when Florence Chadwick stepped into the water to swim across the channel from Catalina Island to the California coast. Long-distance swimming was nothing new for Florence, as she had already crossed the English Channel between England and France in both directions. That morning, the water was freezing and the fog was so thick that she could hardly see the support boat. After swimming for more than 15 hours, she asked to be pulled into the boat. Her coach tried his best to encourage her, telling her they were very close to shore, but all she could see was fog, and she gave up, just half a mile from her goal. Later, she shared, "I'm not making excuses, but if I could have seen the shore, I think I could have made it." It wasn't the cold, fear, or exhaustion that defeated Florence Chadwick. It was the fog. 2 months later, at the same channel and distance, Florence Chadwick set a new record because this time she could see the land. Sometimes we too fail, not because we are afraid or due to pressure from others or anything else, but simply because we cannot see our goal. 3. Red light. 2 friends stopped their car at a red light. The driver didn't say anything, but the passenger turned and sighed, saying, "So much time wasted because of red lights. With all that time, someone could write a whole book. No wonder everyone gets annoyed at red lights." The driver remained silent. The passenger then tapped on the arm. "Aren't you listening to me?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I'm busy with my own thing." "What are you doing? I don't see you doing anything." "I'm wishing someone good luck," the driver replied. "I've gotten into the habit of thinking of a loved one or a friend and wishing them good luck every time I stop at a red light. It's great because it gives me a chance to send good wishes to many people, which I wouldn't remember to do during a busy day otherwise. 4. Wealth. When I was young, my family lived in Minnesota. Everyone in the area loved watermelon. Uncle Bernie, a friend of my dad's, owned the biggest watermelon storage in the area. Every summer, as the first watermelons rolled in from the fields, Uncle Bernie would call all of us kids in the village. We'd sit on the storage wall, swinging our legs and waiting. Uncle Bernie would take a large knife and cut open the first watermelon, handing each of us a big slice. We only ate the heart of the melon, the center, the reddest, sweetest part that was almost seedless and the tastiest. The rest was discarded. My father used to say, "Uncle Bernie is truly a wealthy man." Back then, I thought he said that because Uncle Bernie was a successful businessman. Many years later, I realized that my father admired not so much his material wealth, but more his ability to take a break, gather us kids, and share the heart of the watermelon with us. Wealth is really a matter of perspective. Most of us, no matter how much money we have, never feel we have enough money or time to sit and enjoy the heart of the watermelon. I hope you still have time to enjoy the fruits of your labor and the little joys that life offers you. That's the heart of the watermelon, the best, the sweetest part, leaving behind the rest, the troubles, the frustrations, and moving far away from them. 5. The House of Mirrors. Once upon a time, in a distant village, there was a big house filled with 1,000 mirrors. A cheerful little dog learned about this and decided to visit. It walked in with a happy face, wagging its tail fast and ears perked up. To its amazement, it saw 1,000 other friendly dogs looking back and wagging their tails just like it. The dog smiled, and 1,000 dogs smiled warmly in return. As it left the house, the dog thought, "What a wonderful place. I will definitely come back many times." In the same village, there was another dog, not so happy and cheerful. It also decided to visit the House of Mirrors. It slowly climbed the steps, head hung low, and looked inside. When it saw 1,000 unfriendly faces staring back, the dog barked and was frightened to see 1,000 dogs barking back. As it left the House of Mirrors, it thought to itself, "What a terrible place. I will never come back here again." All the faces in this world are mirrors. And you, how do you reflect on the faces of the people you meet? 6. The Kiss. I was on a train that stopped at a small station. It was almost dawn and the sky was still dotted with stars. A chill air swept into the carriage when the train halted to welcome new passengers. 2 more people joined my carriage, a man and a young boy. It took the boy a moment to settle into his seat after navigating through the crowded aisle. While his father sat near the door, the boy sat by the window surrounded by people who looked sleepy, irritable, and tired after a night of restless sleep. As the train entered a tunnel, the boy slid from his seat and I felt his hand on my knee as he leaned slightly forward. It seemed he wanted to say something to me. I leaned in to listen, but to my surprise, he gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. As we came out of the tunnel, the boy went back to his seat and looked out the window, appearing very happy. I was really surprised. Why would a boy kiss a stranger on a train? I was even more astonished when occasionally the boy would stand up and give a kiss on the cheek to each of the adults sitting next to him. Confused, we all looked at the man. The father explained, "He's very happy because he's healthy again and alive. He was very sick for a long time." When the train reached the last station, the man and the boy merged into the crowd of passengers. I still felt the boy's kiss on my cheek, a kiss that brought me happiness and also made me wonder, how many adults share such kisses to express the joy of living? The boy didn't just share a sweet kiss with me, but also a thought-provoking message. Don't let yourself die before your heart stops beating. 7. The True Meaning of Friendship, a heartfelt conversation with an elder. An elderly person turned to me and asked, "How many friends do you have?" "Why do you ask?" "I might have 10 or 20 friends, but I can only remember a few of their names," I replied. The elder smiled understandingly and nodded sadly. "You must be really lucky to have so many friends. But think about what you're saying. There are too many people whose names you don't even know. A friend isn't just someone you say hello to. A friend is a soft shoulder you can cry on. They are a well into which you can pour all your troubles and who lifts you higher. A friend is a helping hand that pulls you out of darkness and despair when all those you call friends have pushed you there. A true friend is an unwavering ally who cannot be shaken or bought. They are a voice that keeps your name alive when others have forgotten. But most importantly, a friend has a heart, a strong, steadfast wall. From the hearts of such friends comes the greatest love. So think about what I've said. Every word is heartfelt. And answer me again, young lady, how many real friends do you have? I smiled at him and said, "At least I have one friend, and that's you." Thank you for being my friend.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
8. Strengths and weaknesses. There's a story about a big, sturdy tree in a forest with branches that covered the sky. Because of its size, it considered itself the king of the trees. One day, looking down at the small, frail plants growing crowded below, the big tree scoffed in mockery. Then, one stormy day, a hurricane swept through, causing all the trees to sway and fall, including the big tree, which was uprooted and died. Only the wild grass survived, standing proudly through countless more storms. The lesson here is simple. While the big tree couldn't withstand the storm, the small grass endured. Everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. What matters is recognizing them. This understanding led an ancient master to develop Aikido, a martial art for the physically weak to overcome the strong. Today, I learned that I might be better at math than my classmate, but not as fast at running. I could sing better than the singer on TV, but not dance as well. I might wear flashy clothes but not attract as much attention as an ordinary girl walking by. I could write about anything and everything, but this piece might not catch your attention. I'm not complacent, nor do I despair when I'm lacking in some areas. Like the grass in the story, I know my strengths and weaknesses. 9. The Eagle Chick. Once upon a time, there was a great mountain, and on its slope lay an eagle's nest containing 4 large eggs. An earthquake shook the mountain, causing one of the eggs to roll down and land in a chicken farm at the base. A hen volunteered to incubate this large egg. One day, the egg hatched a beautiful little eagle, but sadly, the chick was raised as a chicken. Before long, the eagle believed it was nothing more than a chicken. It loved its family and home, yet its spirit longed for something greater. Then, one day, while playing in the yard, the eagle looked up and saw other eagles soaring high in the sky. "Oh," the eagle exclaimed, "I wish I could fly like those birds." The chickens laughed loudly. "You can't fly with those birds. You're a chicken, and chickens don't fly high." The eagle continued to look up at its true family, dreaming of flying high with them. Each time the eagle spoke of its dream, the chickens told it that it was impossible. Eventually, the eagle believed them. It stopped dreaming and continued living as a chicken. After a long life as a chicken, the eagle died. The moral is the same in life. If you believe you are ordinary, you will live an ordinary, unremarkable life, just as you believed. So, if you've ever dreamed of being an eagle, pursue that dream, and don't live like a chicken. 10. The Beggar's Rice Bowl. In a remote village, there were rumors that the prince of the country would visit. The common folk, often seen as the lower class, were thrilled, thinking their village had been forgotten. Since hearing the news, these villagers celebrated daily. But no one was more excited than a beggar in the village. Not knowing when the prince would arrive, he sat by the roadside every day, hoping the prince would give him enough money to buy rice. The beggar had 2 iron bowls, one for collecting coins and another for his rice. Each day, he sat in tattered clothes with his bowls by his side. Finally, the prince arrived and entered the village. As he passed by, the beggar reached out and cried, "Please, have mercy on this poor man." "Give me your bowl of rice," were the only words the prince said. The beggar couldn't believe his ears. Why would the richest man in the country ask for a beggar's rice? Initially reluctant, the beggar eventually took out some rice and handed the prince half of his bowl. The prince poured the rice into his bag, then reached in and pulled out a handful of gold, placing it in the bowl, equal to the amount of rice he received. He handed the bowl back to the beggar and never returned. For the rest of his life, the beggar wondered what would have happened if he had given the prince the whole bowl of rice. 11. The Heart's Deception. There once was an old blind art collector who lived in a small, poor town in post-war Germany. He cherished the paintings in his collection more than life itself, seeing them daily with his mind and memories. The poor old man was unaware that the war had brought extreme hardship, and his family had been forced to slowly sell off the paintings to survive the cold and hunger. Imagine how heartbroken he would be if he ever found out this terrible truth, a revelation that might come from an art dealer who suddenly showed up wanting to buy some pieces from his collection. However, moved by the desperate pleas of the old man's family, the art dealer agreed to play a part in a charade. This kind-hearted man did everything to keep the truth hidden, and he succeeded. The old man, who loved art, bid his unexpected guest farewell, his mind still intact with trust and his eyes twinkling with joy despite his blindness. The art dealer, an unwilling actor, didn't leave with a rare, antique painting, but with a lesson about the love and resilience of struggling people. One might say, sometimes it's not the truth, but the lies that help us live better. But I believe behind those untruthful words, it's the genuine hearts and deep empathy that truly create miracles. 12. The Final Role. There was an old retired actor who lived alone. One summer, he went to stay in a quiet mountain village with his brother's family. His brother was an elementary school teacher in the village. Every afternoon, the actor liked to hang out in a quiet, grassy area in the valley. There, he always noticed a young boy sitting and waiting for the train to pass through the valley, before it turned into the rock faces toward the station above. The boy eagerly waited. The train, covered in dust and packed with passengers, seemed like a different world as it roared through the valley. The boy would jump up, excitedly waving his hands, hoping for a passenger to wave back. But the passengers, tired from a long day of travel, never noticed the unknown boy waving at them. Day after day, the old man saw the boy wave, but no one ever waved back. Seeing the boy's disappointed face made the actor's heart clench. He thought, nothing is more heartbreaking than seeing a child's disappointment. Don't let children lose their faith in life and in people. The next day, his brother saw him pulling out his costume trunk. He stuck on a fake beard, put on glasses, borrowed an old suit, and leaned on a cane. He caught a carriage ride to the station and boarded the train going up to the upper station. Sitting next to the train window, he thought, this is my final role. Just like the minor roles I used to get in the theater, a minor, ordinary passenger among many. As the train passed the valley where the boy stood waving, the old actor leaned out, smiled, and waved back at the boy. He saw the boy's joy explode. The boy jumped around and waved with both hands. As the train moved away, tears of emotion welled up in the actor's eyes, more moving than any grand performance he had given in the theater. This was his final role, a minor one without lines, an insignificant part that brought immense joy to the boy, responding to his heart and ensuring the boy would not lose his faith in life. 13. Faith. In a small rural village, there had been a long drought. The fields were dry, plants wilted, and life was becoming extremely difficult. Months had passed, and the villagers were losing patience. Many families had left the village, while others waited hopelessly. Finally, the village leader decided to organize a communal prayer on the highest hill in the area. He convinced everyone in the village to attend and to bring an object that represented their faith. On a Saturday afternoon, the tired villagers gathered on the hill, each carrying an item that symbolized their belief. Some brought a lucky horseshoe, others a cherished family heirloom. Though nobody really believed these items could change anything, they brought many valuable things. All participants began to pray, holding up their symbols of faith. As if by a miracle, dark clouds gathered and it began to rain, the first drops after many dry months. The villagers were overjoyed, and a debate quickly erupted about which object had brought luck to the village. Everyone thought their item was the most sacred. Suddenly, they heard a little girl shout, "I knew it would rain eventually. See, Mom? I brought this umbrella, and now we can go home without getting wet." The girl held up her umbrella high and walked home with her mother, joyfully. The others watched and realized that it was the little girl who had the greatest faith. Her belief had brought the rain. 14. A way of being. Mr. Thomas is a wealthy farmer. He and his wife are very friendly towards everyone, which makes them well loved by all. One day, he saw his wife, Mrs. Thomas, send a servant to the end of the village to Mrs. John's house, a tenant of his, to borrow a vegetable peeler. After the servant left, he asked his wife, "Do you think we don't have a peeler or can't afford to buy one that you had to send someone to borrow it, adding such hassle?" Mrs. Thomas calmly replied, "Look, our peeler is still in great shape. I know everyone around here loves us because we provide more for them than other landlords, but I don't want it to be like that. I want us to be loved for a higher reason, a sense of community spirit, and that can only happen when there's no divide between us and them, between the rich and the poor. So borrowing the vegetable peeler is just an excuse for us to get closer to everyone else." 15. The story of the shadow. Long ago, there was a curious little goat who often thought about unusual things. For instance, it wondered, why am I called a little goat? Where did I come from? What did things look like before I existed? Even its mother goat was sometimes puzzled and didn't know how to answer. One evening, as the sun was about to set behind the mountains, the little goat was looking for its mother to head home. Suddenly, it noticed something strange. A thing that was long and thin followed it everywhere. Wherever the little goat went, this thing followed. The little goat turned its head, and so did the thing. How could it get away from it? The little goat felt tired and bothered by it. Mother Goat came running up and said, "The sun is setting, let's go home." The little goat stubbornly replied, "No, I'm not going anywhere." Mother Goat, surprised, asked, "Aren't you afraid of the wolf?" "I'm not afraid of the wolf. I'm scared of this thing." The little goat pointed at the strange thing and answered. Mother Goat saw this and laughed. "That's your shadow. Come on, let's get home before it gets dark." After saying this, Mother Goat led the little goat home. Meanwhile, a wolf was hiding behind a large rock, planning to pounce on the little goat. It had overheard the conversation between the little goat and its mother. The wolf thought, "Luckily, I didn't jump out. Otherwise, I might have met the shadow. But what does a shadow look like anyway? I've never seen it." The wolf decided to find out what the shadow looked like before it was too late to eat the little goat. The next day, as the sun was about to set again, the wolf encountered the little goat on its way to find Mother Goat. "Stop, little goat!" the wolf shouted. The wolf stood blocking the path, its long, sharp tongue hanging out. "I wonder what it wants." The little goat was terrified. "Don't be scared. I'm not going to catch you today. I just want to see where the shadow is, and then I'll let you go." Hearing this, the little goat's heart pounded, but it tried to remain calm and said, "You want to see the shadow? It's fiercer and bigger than you, and it knows how to eat you. Don't blame me then." Hearing the little goat, the wolf's adventurous spirit was aroused. It hissed, "In this forest, I have never met a worthy opponent. Spare your words. Just show me where the shadow is." The little goat whispered, "There, turn around. The shadow is right behind you." The wolf turned around and indeed saw something dark and long on the ground. It lunged to bite, and the shadow moved forward. As the wolf leapt, so did the shadow. The wolf kept chasing its own shadow until it fell off a cliff and died. The little goat? It started singing and found its mother to go home together. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 16. Where is Buddha? Once upon a time, there was a young man who read scriptures and became fascinated by Buddha. Determined to meet him, he packed his belongings and set off on a journey. After traversing countless mountains, rivers, cities, and facing many dangers, he still hadn't found Buddha as described in the scriptures. Buddha's body is golden, about 6 feet tall, with 32 fine characteristics and 80 beautiful aspects shining brightly. One day, on a mountainside, the young man happened to meet an elderly man with white hair and a beard who seemed extraordinary. Excited, the young man earnestly asked, "Excuse me, sir, do you know where Buddha currently resides? Please, could you tell me?" The old man smiled. "Oh, Buddha is everywhere. Didn't you encounter him on your journey?" "Sir, I met many people on the road, but they were all ordinary folks. I haven't seen anyone who possesses even a few of the noble features described in the scriptures." The old man laughed heartily. "My dear boy, don't you know that the body with the 32 fine characteristics and 80 beautiful aspects was cremated by the people of India, and they shared his ashes to build temples?" So, is Buddha dead then? At this moment, Buddha is manifesting everywhere. He too has good and bad traits like all beings. Do you still wish to meet him? Sir, no matter what form he takes, if it truly is him, I still deeply long to see him. Well then, let me give you a tip. Go back home, and if on your way you see someone with the left shoe on the right foot and the right shoe on the left foot, that person is an incarnation of Buddha. Show respect and offer them homage as the scriptures instruct. The young man hurried back. Along the long road, he did not meet Buddha as the old man had described. Disheartened, he returned home. It was late at night and his mother was still up, waiting for him with a lamp. Hearing her son's voice, she fumbled for her shoes and hurried to the door with the aid of her cane. The young man saw his mother, frail and tearful, with her shoes on the wrong feet. Overwhelmed with emotion, he embraced her tightly and exclaimed, "Oh, my beloved Buddha!" 17. Who deserves more praise? In a house, there lived a mother rabbit with her 2 sons. Their father worked far away, so both sons wanted to show that they were the good kids who loved their mother the most. The older rabbit knew he was the eldest, so he always let his younger brother go first. However, the younger rabbit always wanted to be praised more by their mother. One day, Mother Rabbit told her sons, "Today, you boys have no school. Older Rabbit, please go to the forest and gather 10 fragrant mushrooms for me. Younger Rabbit, go to the meadow and pick 10 beautiful flowers. The places are a bit far, so be careful and don't dawdle." Both brothers eagerly agreed and set off right away. Younger Rabbit ran straight to the meadow. When he arrived, he didn't immediately pick the first flowers he saw. Instead, he walked around to find the most beautiful cluster, picking only the brightest ones. After leaving the meadow, he ran straight home to show his mother. "Mom, look at these beautiful flowers I brought." His mother was impressed. "These flowers are lovely." Younger Rabbit beamed. "Mom, praise me. I didn't stop anywhere along the way." Mother Rabbit looked at him fondly. "You are such a good boy. Did you see anyone or anything interesting on the way?" Younger Rabbit quickly replied, "Yes, I saw Squirrel, the little one from Mr. Golden Squirrel's family, crying by the guava tree. She must be naughty, right?" "Did you ask why Squirrel was crying?" "No, Mom. I was worried you'd be waiting." Mother Rabbit didn't ask anything more. After a while, the older rabbit returned. his basket full of mushrooms and morel mushrooms. He greeted his mother and pulled out handfuls of chestnuts from his pocket to give to his brother. "You like chestnuts, so I brought some back for you." Mother Rabbit asked, "Why did you pick so many mushrooms?" Older Rabbit smiled. "I thought since I was there, I might as well pick extra for next time, Mom." Mother Rabbit then asked, "Why did it take you so long to come back?" Older Rabbit explained, "Well, Mom, on my way back, I helped Mrs. Dreamflower Hen." "What happened to Mrs. Dreamflower Hen?" "She lost one of her chicks while they were out eating. I stopped to help her find little chirpy hen. That's why I was late, Mom." Hearing this, Mother Rabbit smiled and nodded, calling both sons closer and saying, "My dear sons, both of you deserve praise for obeying me. Younger Rabbit, you always think of me, which is right. But Older Rabbit, you also think of others, gather extra mushrooms for me, bring gifts for your brother, and help Mrs. Dreamflower Hen in her time of need. You should remember, doing good is not just about being praised, but primarily about helping others." Younger Rabbit realized and shyly said, "Yes, Mom, I understand." 18. A new perspective on life. A few years ago, when I started cycling, I never thought that training on my bike would be anything more than a few casual rides. However, as I got fitter, my friends encouraged me to step it up and try some longer rides. My first big challenge was a 150-mile ride, an annual charity bike race to raise funds for research against sclerosis. When I first signed up, the idea seemed great, supporting a charity while undertaking a long ride, and I was excited to train. But as the race approached, doubt took over. I still wanted to support the charity, but I was no longer keen on enduring such a long ride over 2 days. The race began on a Sunday morning in the peaceful Georgia countryside, and I felt great during the first few hours. This was exactly what I had imagined, and my spirits were high. But by the end of the day, I was utterly exhausted and irritable. If anyone believes that the body is linked to the soul, I was a prime example. Every complaint from my brain seemed to go straight to my legs. "I can't take it anymore," led to a leg cramp, and "everyone else is better than me," followed by breathlessness and lack of oxygen. I wanted to quit. Reaching the top of a hill, the stunning sunset on the horizon helped me push on for a few more minutes. Then I noticed a cyclist ahead of me moving slowly in the glowing evening light. Something about her was different, but I couldn't tell what, so I pushed myself to catch up. She was cycling slow but steady, with a gentle, determined smile on her face, and then I realized she had only one leg. My focus shifted immediately. All day I had doubted my own body, but now I knew. It wasn't the body but the will that would get me to my destination. The next day was rainy. I didn't see the one-legged female athlete again, but I continued without complaining, knowing she was somewhere with me on the road. And by the end of the day, still feeling strong, I completed my 150 miles. 19. John D. Rockefeller's leadership lesson: turning mistakes into opportunities for growth. Years ago, a senior executive at an oil company made a costly mistake that resulted in a $2 million loss. The head of the company at the time was John D. Rockefeller. On the day the bad news spread, most of the company's staff and other executives were anxious and tried to avoid Rockefeller, not wanting to get involved. The only exception was Edward T. Bedford, the executive who made the error. He met with Rockefeller promptly on the same day. Bedford was prepared to hear a harsh lecture from him. When Bedford entered Rockefeller's office, the oil tycoon was busy writing with a pencil on a piece of paper. Bedford waited silently, not wanting to interrupt. After a few minutes, Rockefeller looked up. "Ah, Bedford, is that you?" Rockefeller said calmly. "I assume you've heard about our company's losses." Bedford replied that he had. "I've thought a lot about this," Rockefeller continued, "and before I speak to you, I've written down a few lines here." Later, Bedford would recount the conversation. The first line on the paper where my boss had written a few lines read, "Bedford's strengths." What followed was a list of my virtues, including a brief note that I had made 3 correct decisions in the past that earned the company much more than what we lost this time. I never forgot that lesson. For years afterwards, whenever I was about to lose my temper with someone, I would force myself to sit down, think, and write out all the good things about that person as long as possible. By the time I finished, I usually felt calmer. I don't know how many times this habit has saved me from making mistakes, losing my temper blindly at others. I'm thankful to my boss for this habit, and now I recommend it to everyone. 20. The cow fainted. The girl, about 14 or 15 years old, was excitedly talking to her mother, who was sitting next to her sister in the maternity ward. "You know, Mom, our cow fainted." I was visiting a friend whose wife had just given birth and was sitting in the bed next to them when I couldn't help but pay attention to such a startling piece of news. Her mother didn't say anything, but her sister seemed skeptical, softly saying, "Are you out of your mind? How can a cow faint?" "No, really, I saw it myself," the girl insisted, growing more animated in the face of her sister's disbelief. "You know, Uncle Hung bought a calf from Mr. Bang for Sister Thoa's wedding, but no matter what, the calf wouldn't move. Uncle Hung had to use the mother cow to lead it. By the time the mother cow got to Uncle Hung's house, some people tied the calf to a jackfruit tree. At that point, no matter what, the mother cow refused to move. She spread her legs so nobody could pull her. Then, they decided to slaughter the calf right in front of her. The mother cow moaned a few times. She stared intently at her calf being butchered, suddenly collapsed, and rolled onto the ground. She fainted, her legs flailing in the air. Uncle Hung had to burn some straw and fan the smoke for a long while before the mother cow woke up. She then slowly walked alone to the field. The girl suddenly stopped talking. Everyone in the room fell silent. The sister looked stunned. For me, my nose tingled as I imagined the mother cow's distress upon seeing her calf struggle. Walking closer, I patted the girl on the head. She looked up at me with clear eyes. "I feel sorry for the baby cow and the mother cow." I nodded and told her, "I believe the cow really fainted." 21. Just call her mom. A baby about to be born asked God, "Tomorrow you're sending me to earth, but how will I live there when I'm so small and helpless?" God replied, "Among the angels, I've chosen one for you. Your angel will wait for you and take great care of you." The baby persisted, "But all I'm supposed to do is sing and smile happily, right?" God said, "Your angel will sing to you and smile with you every day. You'll feel her love and be very happy." The baby asked again, "And how will I understand when they speak to me in a language I've never heard before?" God answered, "Your angel will speak to you with the gentlest and most beautiful words you've never heard, and with patience and care, she will teach you to speak." I hear there are many bad people on earth. Who will protect me? Your angel will guard you even if it threatens her own life. But I will be sad not to see you anymore. Your angel will always talk to you about me and teach you how to return to me, even though I am always near. In that peaceful moment in heaven, but still hearing echoes from the world, the baby hurriedly asked God, "Lord, if I must go now, please tell me my guardian angel's name." The name doesn't matter. You can simply call her Mom.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
22. The Duck Story. One summer, Andrew's mom sent him to spend time with his grandmother in the countryside. Andrew was thrilled when his Uncle Billy gave him a slingshot. Remembering his uncle's advice, he only practiced shooting in the woods behind the house. Andrew wandered around the woods all morning, but he didn't hit anything. Feeling sad, He walked home for lunch. As he entered the yard, he saw his grandmother's ducks chasing each other around, quacking loudly. Andrew bent down, picked up a stone, and shot it without thinking. Unfortunately, the stone hit a duck in the head, and it fell down in the yard, twitching a few times before lying still. Panicked and seeing no one around, Andrew quickly hid the duck under a pile of wood. He sat down to lunch, keeping his secret, unaware that someone had seen what happened to the duck. After lunch, as grandmother was putting away the leftovers, she told Sally, Andrew's cousin and the daughter of Uncle Billy, "Today, it's your turn to do the dishes." "But Andrew promised to do them for me," Sally quickly replied, giving Andrew a look that made his face turn red as he was about to protest. "Is that true, Andrew?" his grandmother asked, without turning around. As Andrew started to speak, Sally gave him a sharp nudge in the ribs and whispered through clenched teeth, "The duck? Remember?" "I did promise her," Andrew replied grudgingly. In the afternoon, while grandfather suggested going fishing with Andrew and Sally, grandmother said, "Sally, you stay and help me make soup for dinner." "But Andrew likes making soup more than fishing," Sally coolly answered. Andrew tried to protest, but Sally cleared her throat sharply. Choking back his words, he finally said, "I'll stay and help grandmother." Throughout the day, Sally kept tormenting Andrew about the duck incident. Exhausted, Andrew lay sprawled on the living room sofa that evening and fell asleep. When he woke up, someone had turned off the lights and covered him with a blanket. Lying there, he recalled the day's events. He wanted to confess to his grandmother about the duck, but he feared she might tell his mom, and then maybe next year his mom wouldn't let him visit his grandparents. And with Sally being so overbearing, when would he ever escape her grasp? He felt utterly hopeless. Suddenly, his grandmother's gentle hand rested on his shoulder, and her soothing voice whispered, "Tell me, dear, whatever it is, just speak up and lighten your heart." "The duck. The duck," Andrew stammered. Grandmother was silent. After a deep breath, Andrew blurted out, "I accidentally killed one of the ducks, Grandma." "Oh, the duck incident. I was a bit surprised by how you were acting with Sally, but I understood everything when I herded the ducks into the pen and noticed one was missing. But I wanted to wait for you to tell me yourself. Today's story is a lesson for you. Hiding your wrongdoings will never bring peace, and you'll become a slave to guilt." 23. Light a match. At a dinner in the Los Angeles Stadium, a well-known speaker, Mr. John Keller, was presenting to about 100,000 people. Mid-speech, he paused and announced, "Please, don't be alarmed. I'm about to turn off all the lights in this stadium." The lights went out, and the stadium was plunged into deep darkness. Mr. Keller continued, "Now I'm going to light a match. If you see the flame, shout, 'I see it.'" When he struck the match, the entire stadium erupted. "I see it!" After the lights were turned back on, Mr. John Keller explained, "The light from a small act of kindness, like a match, can illuminate the dark night of humanity just like this." Once again, all the lights in the stadium were turned off. A voice declared, "Anyone who has a lighter, please light it now." Suddenly, the stadium was brightly lit. Mr. John Keller concluded, "When we all come together, we can overcome darkness, war, terrorism, evil, and hatred with these small sparks of love, forgiveness, and kindness. Peace is not just an absence of war. It's not just living without the sound of gunfire. Because in human interactions, sometimes people hurt each other without needing guns. Sometimes they torment and exploit each other without a war. The best way to build peace is to increase our acts of love and kindness towards one another. These acts, coming from a place of compassion, are like tiny lights of a match. But when everyone lights up these small lights, these loving actions have the power to dispel the darkness of suffering and evil. 24. Remember me. There will come a day when my body lies on a bed covered with white sheets in a hospital filled with both the living and the dying. Soon, doctors will determine that my brain has stopped functioning and that my life has effectively ended. When that happens, do not try to sustain me artificially with machines. Don't call this a deathbed, but a bed of life, and take my body away from it to help others lead fuller lives. Donate my eyes to a man who has never seen the sunrise, a child's face, or the love in a woman's eyes. Give my heart to someone whose own heart aches with every endless day. Pass my blood to a teenager pulled from the wreckage of a car so that he might live to see his children grow. Offer my kidneys to someone dependent on machines week after week. Take my bones, my muscles, my nerves, and find a way to help a disabled child walk. Explore every corner of my brain. Take cells if needed. Let them grow so that one day a boy who cannot speak may shout, and a girl who is deaf may hear the rain against her window. Burn what remains of me and scatter the ashes to the wind to help the flowers grow. If you must bury something, bury my faults, my weaknesses, and all the prejudices of humankind. Give my sins to the devil, send my soul to God. If by chance you wish to remember me, do something kind for someone in need. If you do that, I will live forever. 25. The cat. Without a mouth. Life in Japan is very hectic. In this age of computers and rockets, adults go to work and children go to school daily and weekly. They hardly have time to pay attention to each other. Life may seem dull, but perhaps they don't feel that way because they are too busy with their daily tasks. There was a girl who lived in such a typical family. Her parents went to work and she went to school, rarely seeing each other. She wanted to talk, but didn't know who to talk to. No one had the time to listen to her speak. Her friends were also busy with their classes, and some were engrossed in modern video games with realistic three-dimensional graphics. She felt lonely and retreated into her shell. However, she wasn't left alone because she was small and shy, and the older kids often teased her, pulling at her backpack and hair, sometimes even hitting her. One afternoon, after being teased by some older classmates, she sadly went to the nearby park, sat on a stone bench, and cried. After crying for a while, she looked up and saw an old man sitting next to her. The old man saw her look up and asked, "Girl, why aren't you going home after school instead of crying here?" Tearfully, she replied, "I don't want to go home. It's so sad at home. There's no one there. No one listens to me." "I'll listen to you," he said. And as she cried, she told the old man about all the frustrations and sadness she had been feeling. The old man just silently listened without judging or commenting. He just listened. Finally, when the girl finished, he told her not to be sad and to go home. From then on, every day after school, she went to the park to talk to the old man. She changed a lot, becoming braver and happier. She felt that life still had much to offer, until one day she was hit by a classmate. Being weak and unable to do anything, she was upset and eagerly ran to the park to share her sorrows. In her haste, she crossed a red light. The day they heard about the girl's death, still in the park, still on the same bench she used to sit on, an old man quietly burned a paper effigy. It was a gift he had wanted to give her the day before, but she hadn't come. The effigy was a beautiful, pure white cat with big ears and round, kind eyes, but no mouth. The old man wanted it to be by her side forever, always listening to her without ever judging. Since then, on the desks of many Japanese students, you can often find a mouthless cat doll, now known as Hello Kitty, a cat created to listen to everyone. I don't know if this origin story of Hello Kitty is true. I am not advertising for that brand. I just know that every time I see the Hello Kitty, it reminds me to really listen to others. 26. Always waiting for her to hang up first. Back when a young woman and a young man were deeply in love, their phone calls seemed to last forever. At the end of each call, it was always the girl who hung up first, hesitating as she didn't want to say goodbye. The boy would linger a moment, savoring the warmth of her voice still hanging in the air and feeling a melancholic longing. Later, they broke up. The girl quickly found a new boyfriend, a handsome, flashy guy. She felt very satisfied and proud, but over time she began to sense something was missing between them, a vague sense of unease and loss. What was it? She couldn't quite pinpoint it. Just that whenever they ended a call, she felt the abrupt cutoff, before she could even finish saying, "See you later," echoing sharply in her ears like a chilling sound, making her feel as if she couldn't hold on to this new relationship, like a kite slipping from weak fingers. One day they argued and the new boyfriend walked away, leaving her feeling strangely free. One day, reminiscing about her first love, she felt a pang of nostalgia, the silly boy who always waited to hear her say goodbye. Moved, she picked up the phone. His voice was as sincere and calm as ever. She stumbled over her words, finally managing a goodbye. This time she didn't hang up, silently listening to the quiet on the other end. After a while, his voice came through. "Why don't you hang up?" Her voice choked up. "Why do you want me to hang up first?" "I'm used to it," he calmly replied. "I want you to hang up first. It gives me peace of mind." But the one who hangs up last always feels a sense of regret, as if they've just let something slip away. Her voice trembled. "That's why I'd rather bear that loss, as long as you're happy," he said. Unable to hold back, she burst into tears, her tears soaking through the fabric of old romantic memories. Finally, she realized that someone who couldn't wait to hear her last word was not the one she was waiting for her whole life. It turns out, love can be simple. Sometimes just waiting is enough to say it all. 27. The last things. Is a cat ever too full if there's still fish on the plate? I teased my friend as I noticed he was holding the last piece of candy from the box. The truth was, he had finished off my last stash of food. On this afternoon, swamped with difficult math homework, that candy jar was the only comfort. "Don't tell me you're too full to eat anymore." "It's not that simple," he winked. "Have you ever heard of the last rule?" I knew he was trying to justify his actions. "This last candy is special, so I'm not eating it in a hurry. I want to save it. Try it sometime and you'll feel its importance." So, does that make the 1,000 other candies you'll eat important too? Think about it seriously. I want to talk about things considered last. When buying a TV, if the salesman says, "This is the last one of its kind we're making," you'd find it more valuable because you can't get another one like it and you're willing to pay more. Or the last meal a friend cooks for you before they move away, knowing you won't have a meal like that for a long time, doesn't it feel more significant and tastier? This time, my friend was right. I remembered the last Sunday dinner with my family before my dad went on a long business trip and never returned. I recalled the last argument with a close friend, which we never resolved before they moved schools. I thought of the last time I saw a sick puppy behind the cinema wall. I had planned to take it home, but by the time I was determined, it was gone. I remembered the last words of a schoolmate, known for her bravery in facing leukemia. "Please continue to wish for good things for everyone, as long as life exists on this earth." My friend was right. When something is seen as the last, we value it more. You would rather people say, "The last time I met him, he was really pleasant," instead of "The last time I met him, he was very irritable." And if you think this way, today will be much better. If you cherish it, you will love it more and make it more meaningful. Remember, the last thing you do and the last words you say stay longest in the hearts of others. 28. The Cinderella story discussion in class. The literature class has begun. Today, the teacher is discussing the Cinderella story. First, the teacher asks a student to come up and recount the Cinderella tale. After the student finishes, the teacher thanks them and starts asking questions. Teacher, which characters did you guys like or dislike in the story? Student, we liked Cinderella and the prince, but not the wicked stepmother and her daughters. Cinderella is kind, lovely, and beautiful. The stepmother and her daughters were mean to Cinderella. Teacher, what would happen if Cinderella didn't get on the pumpkin carriage by midnight? Student, Cinderella would turn back into her dirty, ragged self as she was before. Oh boy, that would look terrible. Teacher, that's why it's essential to be punctual or you'll end up causing trouble for yourself. Also, take a look at yourselves. You're all wearing nice clothes. Remember, never dress sloppily when meeting others, especially the girls here. When you grow up, if you dress poorly on a date, it might just knock someone out. The teacher pretends to faint, causing the class to laugh. Now, another question. If you were the stepmother, would you stop Cinderella from going to the prince's ball? Student. After a silence, a student raises their hand to speak. If I were the stepmother, I'd stop her too. Teacher. Why would you do that? Student. Because I love my own daughter more, and I want her to become the queen. Teacher. Exactly. That's why we often think stepmothers aren't good people. In reality, they're not bad. They just don't love others as much as their own children. Now another question. The stepmother doesn't allow Cinderella to go to the prince's ball and even locks her in the house. So why could Cinderella still go and become the most beautiful girl at the ball? Student. Because the fairy godmother helped her, giving her beautiful clothes and turning a pumpkin into a carriage and mice and a dog into her servants. Teacher. Right. You're absolutely correct. Think about it. If the fairy godmother hadn't come to help, Cinderella couldn't have gone to the ball, right? Student. Right. Teacher. And if the mice and dog hadn't helped, could Cinderella have made it back home? Student. No. Teacher. Just having a fairy godmother isn't enough. That's why we always need help from friends, no matter the situation. Your friends may not be fairies or gods, but you still need them. I hope you all make as many friends as possible. Now think about this. If Cinderella had missed the opportunity to go to the ball because of her stepmother, could she have become the prince's wife? Student. No. If she had missed that chance, she wouldn't have met the prince or had him fall in love with her. Teacher. Exactly right. If Cinderella didn't want to go to the ball, even if the stepmother hadn't stopped her and had actually encouraged her to go, Cinderella would have gained nothing. Who decided that Cinderella should go to the ball? Student. Cinderella herself. Teacher. So, even though Cinderella no longer had her birth mother to love her, and despite the stepmother not loving her, these things couldn't stop Cinderella from loving and valuing herself. Suppose any of you feel unloved or have a stepmother who doesn't care for you like Cinderella's case. What would you do? Student. We must learn to love ourselves. Teacher. Exactly. No one can stop you from loving yourself. If you feel unloved by others, you must love yourself even more. If others don't give you opportunities, you need to create many for yourself. If you truly love yourself, you will find everything you want. Besides Cinderella, no one could have stopped her from attending the prince's ball and becoming the queen, right? Student. Right, absolutely. Teacher. Now for the final issue. Is there anything illogical about this story? Student. After a moment of silence. After midnight, everything returns to normal, but Cinderella's glass slippers didn't change back. Teacher. Oh my, you all are so smart. See, even great writers, like the French author Charles Perrault, who wrote Cinderella, make mistakes. So, making mistakes isn't scary. I guarantee that if any of you want to become a writer, you'll definitely create works, even better than the Cinderella story. Do you believe that? All students applaud enthusiastically. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 29. The colors of friendship. One day, the colors of the world began arguing about which one was the most beautiful, important, useful, and loved. Green said, "I am the most important. I represent life and hope. I'm chosen for grass, trees, and leaves. Without me, all living things on Earth would not survive. Just look at that vast field of green." Blue interrupted, "Think about the Earth. Now think about the sky and the oceans. Water is the most basic necessity of life, formed by clouds from these vast seas. Plus, the sky provides a large, peaceful, and calm space." Yellow laughed loudly. "Oh, you are all so serious. I bring laughter, happiness, and warmth to the world. Look, the sun, the moon, and the stars are all yellow. Whenever you see a sunflower, it's like the whole world is smiling. Without me, there would be no joy." Orange spoke up, "I am the color of health and strength. I might not be everywhere like you guys, but I am the most valuable because I am needed for life. I bring the most essential vitamins with carrots, oranges, mangoes, pumpkins, and papayas. I don't appear much, but at sunrise or sunset, my color shines. Can any of you match this beauty?" Red couldn't hold back and joined in. "I am blood, and life is blood. I represent danger but also symbolize bravery. I bring fire to humanity. I am always ready to fight for a noble cause. Without me, the earth would be as empty as the moon. I am the color of love and passion, of red roses, of poppies." Purple finally spoke, "I symbolize power and loyalty. Kings and queens choose me because I am a sign of authority and excellence. No one dares to question me. They just listen and obey." Finally, Indigo spoke, not loudly but decisively. "Think of me. I am the color of quiet and hardly noticed. But without me, you would just be surface beauty. I represent thought and contrast, dawn and the deep sea. You need me to balance your exteriors. I am the inner beauty." As the colors continued to argue and persuade each other of their superiority, suddenly a bright flash of lightning lit up the sky, followed by the loud roar of thunder, and heavy rain began to fall. The colors, scared, huddled together for warmth. Rain spoke sternly, "You are foolish to only struggle among yourselves. Don't you realize that you were created with a special and distinct purpose? Each of you is a wonderful color. The world would be boring without any of you. Now take each other's hands and come to me." The colors joined hands, forming a variety of hues. Rain continued, "From now on, whenever it rains, each of you will stretch across the sky in your own color, forming a circle to remind you to always live in harmony. We call this the rainbow. The rainbow symbolizes the hope of tomorrow." And so, every time it rained, to cleanse the world, a rainbow would shine in the sky, beautifying life and reminding us to always respect each other. 30. The New Year's Gift. One day, two boys were playing when a fairy appeared before them and said, "I bring you a New Year's gift." She handed each of the boys a package and then vanished. Carl and Philip opened their packages to find beautiful books, with pages as white and pristine as fresh snow when they turned the first page. Months later, the fairy returned and said, "I gave each of you a book, and now I must take them back to return them to the time god, who sent these books to you." "Can I keep the book a little longer?" Philip asked. "It will be hard to remember it later. I want to draw something on the last page." "No," the fairy replied. "I must take it back as it is." "I wish I could see my book all at once," Carl said. "I only get to see one page at a time because once a page is turned, It sticks shut quickly, and I can't open more than one page a day. Look back through your book, the fairy suggested, and lit 2 small lamps for them. By that light, they were able to see the pages as the fairy turned them. The boys looked and wondered if this was the same beautiful book the fairy had given them a year ago. The once clean and beautiful pages were now marked with ugly stains and scratches, yet some pages had charming little pictures. Some pages shone with radiant colors, others had beautiful flowers, and there were pages with a bright, elegant rainbow. However, even the most beautiful pages had stains and scratches. Finally, Carl and Philip looked up at the fairy. "Who did this?" they both asked. "Each page was white and beautiful when we first turned it, but now there isn't a single white page left in the whole book." "I will explain the pictures to you," the fairy said with a smile. "Look, Philip, these fresh roses on this page are from when you let the baby play with your toys. And this beautiful bird, looking as if it's singing with all its heart, would never have appeared on this page if you hadn't tried to be good and cheerful instead of fighting and complaining." "But what caused these spots?" Philip asked. "That happened on a day you told a lie, and here is when you didn't listen to your mother. All the ugly stains and scratches, which look very ugly, are in both your and Carl's books, formed when you were too mischievous. Every beautiful thing in this book came when you did something good." "Oh, if only we could have the book again," Carl and Philip both said. "That is not possible," the fairy replied. "Look, these books have been dated for each year, and now they must go back to the Time God's bookshelf, but I will bring you each a new book. Perhaps you can make these books more beautiful than the old ones." After saying this, the fairy disappeared, but in each boy's hand was a new book, open to the first page. On the spine was written in gold letters, "For the New Year." 31. The Compassionate Lie, a Tale of Love and Survival. I've begun to learn to lie. When I was young, I was taught to live honestly, to never deceive myself or others, because that was the only right way to live. At that time, I didn't understand what honesty or deceit meant. I only knew that actions which pleased adults and earned me praise were considered honest. However, one day I learned the truth behind those compliments. I began to tell the sincerest lies of my life. I had a friend who spent most of his time on an old small boat, fishing and squid fishing on the sea, returning to land only a few times a month. Once, he was at sea when the weather changed suddenly, causing violent storms. His mother, left at home, was frail and sick. Worried about her son, her heart condition worsened and she fell into a coma. At that moment, the sea wind howled violently. The doctors decided to operate immediately, but they couldn't proceed while she was comatose and mentally exhausted. During her brief moments of lucidity, she weakly asked if the storm had passed and if her son had returned. Then a neighbor reported finding wreckage from his boat washed ashore. She asked the doctors, but no one answered. Standing there, it would have been foolishly honest to tell her that the storm was terrible, would last a few more days, the boat was destroyed, and her son's fate was unknown. The doctors didn't stop me in time. The story I told crushed her last bit of strength. She sobbed lightly and passed away. The doctor was helpless. I inadvertently committed a grave error I could never forgive myself for. After the storm, my friend survived, rescued by another ship. He didn't blame me, but wept bitterly at his mother's grave. My foolish honesty had caused a terrible mistake. In O. Henry's famous short story, The Last Leaf, a patient believes she will die as the last leaf falls from a tree outside her window. But the last leaf never falls. She recovers, unaware that the last leaf was a fake, painted by an artist to save her. Truth in life isn't always what we see or know. If I hadn't told her about the storm and the debris, the frail mother might not have died. Just like the fake leaf in the story, sometimes a lie, if told out of love, can save lives while a harsh truth can destroy them. Of course, we would choose a compassionate lie. Yet, distinguishing between these kinds of statements is difficult and depends on the circumstances. Do you know how to tell a lie that is full of love and care for humanity? It's simple. Just keep a heart that cares deeply about life and your fellow human beings. 32. If I were you. Imagine yourself in someone else's shoes to better understand the past, present, and future events from a different perspective, not necessarily for yourself, but to grasp your friends' lives better. People often say, if only, after something has passed. For us, yesterday could be today or tomorrow simply because we are friends. And if I weren't myself but you, would I act the same way you do? Probably, but why not consider that possibility? What has happened to you, me, or anyone else is now in the past. A past we can't reclaim and a future we can't precisely predict. But the present starts from the past and bridges to the future. If I were you, I wouldn't hide or suppress my feelings just to avoid confronting myself, along with hundreds of choices, none truly meant for you. If necessary, I'd bury those feelings deep inside to make dealing with myself easier. If I were you, I would never harshly criticize a friend for something only you understand. Even though it might be forgiven, it's like an invisible gap has been created that can't be crossed. A broken glass can't be perfectly restored, no matter how skilled the craftsman. If I were you, I wouldn't keep daydreaming alone. I would share those dreams with others, especially friends, even if the outcome isn't always what I hope for. Opening up to others often brings more in return. If I were you, I wouldn't hold a grudge against a close friend because of a misunderstanding involving someone else, potentially losing what we've built on genuine friendship. I would also discard the idea that others must do something for me before I do anything for them. If I were you, I wouldn't let petty jealousy or self-interest lead to neglecting my own needs, tormenting myself in solitude. You push people away because you love yourself more than ever. If I were you, I would always believe that tomorrow will be brighter than today, no matter what. If I were you, I wouldn't rush to find a new safe haven if the current one isn't yet secure. Sometimes it's a trend, but losing others' trust makes it hard to excel at anything even if you truly wish to. If I were you, I would eliminate any oversensitive thoughts about someone that might lead to foolish actions. It's all just to prove you admire that person. If I were you, I wouldn't spend too much time between four walls and a computer screen isolating myself from the world. There's so much beauty to discover outside. If I were you, I wouldn't bring up others' flaws just for laughs. I also wouldn't think the line between friendship and love is so fragile. If I were you, I wouldn't worry about tomorrow when I don't even know what to do today. Tomorrow might never come, or it might, but have you thought about what you'd do if it really arrives? If I were you, it's all hypothetical. The things that have passed have left something for you, for me, and for our friends, sometimes helping us all grow. I might not be as successful as you, or act like you in some ways, but by imagining I'm you, I get to understand our friends' personalities better and experience life from what I've received. What if you are not you, but me or someone else? Why not indeed? 33. Becoming a mother. My first child, a baby girl, was born on July 27, 2002. I thought I was fully prepared for her arrival. I had read books and articles about childbirth and caring for a baby. Her room was ready, complete with a nightlight, diapers, pacifiers, baby bath, and all the essentials. I felt I couldn't be more prepared. What I hadn't prepared for was how my whole world would change the moment she was born. The overwhelming love I felt for her could bring me to tears. I didn't expect to be unable to finish her first lullaby because I was crying too much. I had no idea how it would feel when the nurse handed her to me and said, "She's looking for you," and how deeply her deep blue eyes gazing at me would imprint on my heart forever. I never knew I could be so vulnerable because of someone else. The first time I took her to the grocery store, I felt like a mother bear protecting her cub. Leaving the house without her made my heart race with worry. I also didn't realize how her arrival would completely change how my husband and I saw each other. Giving birth and breastfeeding made me appreciate my own strength. Why didn't anyone tell me I could no longer watch the evening news without imagining every child abuse story as involving my own daughter? Why did no one warn me about these things? I was overwhelmed. I've never been away from her without constantly thinking about her, nor have I seen a rash on her skin without worrying. Could I truly be the mother I wanted to be for my daughter? They say, and now I believe, that when a woman gives birth to her first child, two beings are born, the child and the mother. Perhaps this birth, the birth of a mother, is something you can never truly prepare for.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
34. A letter from heaven. Sally hurried to the emergency room door when she saw it swing open. "How is my son? Will he be okay? Can I see him now?" Sally asked the doctor anxiously. The doctor replied calmly, "I'm sorry. We've done everything we could." Sally wondered to herself, why can children endure cancer, and why does God seem to ignore them? God, where are you when my son needs your grace now? The doctor said to Sally, "A nurse will take you to see your son in a few minutes before we have to move him." Sally wanted to tell the nurse that she needed to see her little boy right then to say goodbye before she wouldn't be able to see him again. Sally quickly adjusted her hair. "Have you put on your hair cover yet?" the nurse asked. Sally quickly put on the hair cover for hospital visitors and softly said, "Jimmy had thought about donating his body to a medical school. He said it might help someone someday, and that's what he wanted. My first reaction was no, but Jimmy told me, 'Mom, I want to be useful even when I'm gone. It might help another kid like me to have more time with their family.'" Jimmy had a heart of gold, Sally said. He always thought of others and wanted to help people in whatever way he could. Sally walked slowly to the pediatric ward for the last time after having been there for over 6 months. She sat on Jimmy's hospital bed and packed his toys into a bag. She quietly carried the small bag to her car and drove away. The hospital became a tiny dot in the distance as if she was trying to escape it for good. Sally didn't look back, fearing she might turn around and go back to Jimmy. Driving home was tough, and entering the house was even harder. An overwhelming emptiness made Sally's heart ache. She brought Jimmy's toy-filled bag into his room and arranged everything just as it had been when he was still there, including his toy fire truck on the bookshelf corner. Then Sally collapsed next to Jimmy's bed, hugging his pillow tightly as tears silently streamed down her face. Sally woke up around midnight and a letter fell from the pillow. She picked it up and read, "Dear Mom, I know you'll miss me a lot, but never think I'll forget you or stop loving you because I'm not there to tell you how much I love you every day. I think of you every day and love you more and more each day. One day we'll meet again. Mom, if you want kids like me not to feel lonely and sad, give them my room. Let them have the toys I played with. Or if you give my toys to a girl, she might not play with boy toys, so maybe buy her a doll or something she likes. Don't be sad thinking about me, Mom. It's really great here. Grandpa and Grandma will meet me soon. I've been running around and looking at everything, but it won't be long now. The angels are very friendly, and I really like watching them fly around. I'll always love you, your Jimmy." When you lose someone and think you love them more than they loved you, remember that their loss is greatest. One day you might love someone new in the way you love them, but no one will ever love them as much as you did. 35. Unexpected success. Stories of triumph. Despite early criticism. Imagine this. When Fred Astaire first auditioned in 1933, an MGM executive noted, "Can't act, slightly boring, can dance a little." Astaire kept that note above his fireplace in his Beverly Hills home. A professional commented on Vince Lombardi, "He knows very little about football, lacks motivation." Socrates was called an immoral corrupter of youth. In fourth grade, Peter J. Daniel's teacher, Mrs. Phillips, often said, "Peter J. Daniel, you are terrible. You can't do anything right and you'll never amount to anything." Peter remained illiterate and struggled academically until age 26. A friend stayed up with him one night and read him the book Think and Grow Rich. Now, he owns the neighborhood where he grew up and has published a book titled Mrs. Phillips, You Were Wrong. Louisa May Alcott, author of Little Women, was advised by her family to become a servant or seamstress. Beethoven was poor at playing the violin, and instead of practicing, he composed his own music. His teacher said he had no chance of becoming a composer. The famous opera singer Enrico Caruso's parents wanted him to be an engineer. His teacher said he had no voice and could not sing. Charles Darwin, the father of evolutionary theory, dropped out of medical school and his father told him, "You're good for nothing but shooting, rat-catching, and dog-walking." In his autobiography, Darwin wrote that all his teachers and his father considered him a very ordinary boy with below-average intelligence. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper for lacking creativity. Before creating Disneyland, he went bankrupt several times. Thomas Edison's teachers said he was too stupid to learn anything. Albert Einstein didn't speak until he was 4 and didn't read until he was 7. His teacher described him as mentally slow, unsociable, and adrift, forever in foolish dreams. He was expelled from school, and the Zurich Polytechnic wouldn't admit him. Louis Pasteur was an average student in university and ranked 15th out of 22 students in chemistry. Isaac Newton did poorly in elementary school. The father of the sculptor Rodin said, "I have a dumb son." He was known as the poorest student in school and failed the entrance exams to the School of Fine Arts 3 times. His uncle considered him a disgrace. Leo Tolstoy, author of War and Peace, was expelled from university. He lacked the ability and the will to learn. Playwright Tennessee Williams was furious during his time at Washington University when a play of his was rejected in a student competition. One of his teachers recalled that he openly criticized the judges' views and their intelligence. F.W. Woolworth worked at a dry goods store. His employers said he didn't know how to communicate with customers. Before succeeding, Henry Ford failed and went broke 5 times. Babe Ruth, often chosen as the greatest athlete of all time in track and field surveys, was famous for setting a baseball running record, but also for having the most penalties. Winston Churchill failed 6th grade. At 62, he had never been prime minister and only became one after several setbacks and failures. His successes came when he was older. 19 publishers rejected Richard Bach's book, Jonathan Livingston's Seagull, a short story about a seagull. Finally, in 1970, Macmillan agreed to publish it. By 1975, it had sold over 7 million copies in the U.S. alone. Richard Hooker spent 7 years writing the comedic novel MASH, only to be rejected by 21 publishers. Eventually, Morrow agreed to publish it. The novel became a bestseller, was turned into a hit film, and a very successful TV series. 36. Legacy. There was a man who loved art deeply. His passion was collecting paintings, which became his life's goal. He worked tirelessly to save money to buy more artwork from famous artists. This man was a widower with just one son, whom he passed his collecting passion on to. He was proud that his son also became a renowned collector. Eventually, war broke out in their country. Like many young men, his son joined the army. Some time after, the father received a letter stating that his son was missing in action. The news devastated him, as he could not bear the thought of not knowing what had happened to his son. A few weeks later, another letter arrived. It informed him that his son had died while on duty. The father was heartbroken. The letter explained that his son had managed to retreat to safety, but returned to rescue his wounded comrades. He managed to save everyone but was fatally shot while helping the last soldier. On Christmas, a month later, the father, unable to face the holiday without his son, stayed home. Then, someone rang the doorbell. It was a young man holding a large package. The young man said, "Sir, you don't know me, but I was the last person your son saved. I'm not wealthy, so I didn't know what to bring to repay your son's sacrifice. I remember he mentioned you loved collecting paintings, so even though I'm not an artist, I painted a portrait of your son for you." The father hung the portrait over the fireplace where his most valued painting used to be and told the young man, "This is now the most valuable painting I own. It's worth more than all the others in this house." The young man stayed through Christmas. Years later, when the father fell ill and passed away, his death was widely noted. People from far and wide wanted to attend the auction of his art collection announced for Christmas Day. At the auction, packed with collectors and museum representatives, the first item up was the son's portrait. Someone objected, "That's just a portrait of his son. Let's skip it and start with the real valuables." But the auctioneer insisted on starting with it. No one bid until an old man offered $10, saying he was the boy's neighbor and cherished the portrait deeply. With the portrait sold for $10, the auctioneer thanked everyone and unexpectedly ended the auction. The crowd was furious, believing there were more famous artworks to bid on. The auctioneer explained, "I'm sorry, but the auction is over. According to the father's will, whoever bought the portrait of my son gets all the remaining paintings, and that is final." 37. It's so annoying having to babysit you. One beautiful morning, Mother Kangaroo was getting ready to go to the forest across to pick some raspberries for tonight's dessert. Seeing her leave, the little kangaroo pouted, "I don't want to stay home alone." Mom reassured him, "I've asked Mr. Tiger to look after you all day." The little kangaroo frowned. "I'm big now. I don't need a babysitter." Mom insisted, "You need to listen to me and be good while I'm gone." Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Knock, knock. Mom opened the door and in bounced Mr. Tiger. "Hello, everyone. I'm Tiger, at your service." The little kangaroo mumbled a greeting. "Hi, Mr. Tiger. Mom will be back soon. Goodbye for now." Mom kissed the little kangaroo and stepped out the door. Tiger called out, "Don't worry, babysitting is something tigers do best. Ha! Ha 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 ha." While Tiger was still figuring out what to do first, the little kangaroo quickly slipped out the door. "I can go into the forest by myself. I don't need a babysitter anymore." Thinking so, the little kangaroo eagerly headed into the forest. The little kangaroo was so busy looking at the ground collecting interesting leaves that when he looked up, he realized he was lost. He started to cry. "Where am I? I want to go home. Boo-hoo-hoo." Meanwhile, Mr. Tiger was still trying to plan what to do for the day. Finally, he decided, "Well, I'll see what little kangaroo wants to do. But where has he gone?" Tiger frantically searched the house, then dashed out into the street. On the way, Tiger bumped into Mr. Owl. "I'm sorry, I'm in such a hurry. Mr. Owl, have you seen the little kangaroo?" Mr. Owl smiled kindly and said, "Sure, I'll help you look for the little one." After a while of searching, Mr. Owl and Tiger found the little kangaroo. He stuck close to Mr. Tiger until they were near the bridge close to home. Suddenly, the little kangaroo hopped ahead. "Come back! You're going the wrong way!" Tiger shouted. The little kangaroo turned back, but soon he sneakily headed towards the bridge again. "This way is faster. Watch me get home first," he thought and dashed off. A few minutes later, Tiger heard a desperate cry. "Help! Save me, Mr. Tiger!" Tiger rushed over and found the little kangaroo standing on the bridge with one foot stuck in a hole in the wooden plank. "I knew this bridge had a hole," Tiger explained calmly. "That's why we needed to take the longer way around for safety." Just then, Mr. Bear and Little Pig arrived. Hearing what happened, Little Pig advised, "You should listen to adults' advice to avoid danger." But the little kangaroo didn't want to listen anymore because he was very hungry. While Mr. Tiger was preparing a meal, the little kangaroo couldn't wait any longer. He grabbed a slice of bread and climbed up a chair to reach the honey jar on the shelf. Suddenly, he slipped, and the honey jar fell, covering him in honey. Tiger quietly cleaned up the little kangaroo and made a sandwich for lunch. Sitting at the dining table, the little kangaroo mumbled, "I'm sorry, Mr. Tiger." "That's okay." Tiger sighed and continued, "Let's clean up all this mess. Then we can rest a bit." Although worried that Mom would be angry, when she returned, the little kangaroo told her everything. His mother was not only not angry but also smiled and said, "I'm so proud of you for admitting your mistakes. I have a special gift for you and Mr. Tiger." The little kangaroo and Tiger grinned ear to ear in front of a basket full of juicy raspberries from Mom. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 38. Is it rain or your tears, my dear? He was quite the charmer. With his handsome looks and a carefree personality, countless girls fell for him, even though they knew he was with her. She, on the other hand, was gentle and modest. She didn't possess the sharp, modern beauty of the other girls chasing him. Despite knowing about his flirtatious ways, she loved him deeply and faithfully, her love filled with anxiety and pain. She loved rainy days and enjoyed walking in the rain. Whenever she dashed out to frolic under the downpour, he wanted to join her in what she loved, but she always stopped him. "Why won't you let me join you in the rain?" he asked, puzzled. "Because I don't want you to catch a cold," she replied softly, holding his hand tightly. "Then why do you do it if you're afraid of getting sick?" She never answered that question, just gave a small smile and looked off into the distance. Eventually, he gave in and did as she wished, because seeing her happy made him happy too. However, their happy moments didn't last. He fell for another girl, stunning and stylish, who captivated many. He was no exception. He became obsessed, trying to win her over, forgetting about her. One evening, as they sat down for dinner, he suggested they break up. Despite feeling guilty and unsure about his feelings for her, he didn't realize that he was chasing something fleeting and losing something precious. Surprisingly, she accepted his suggestion quietly and thoughtfully. Perhaps she had long known that he wasn't hers completely. Like the wind, he wasn't meant to stay with anyone forever. That night, as he walked her home for the last time and it suddenly began to rain, she pulled her hand from his, ran ahead and twirled in the cool raindrops. Watching her small, dear figure, the feelings of shame and sorrow overwhelmed him. For the first time, he didn't follow her wish. He walked up to her under the heavy rain, gently kissed her, believing it to be their last, and said, "I'm truly sorry for hurting you, but the days we spent walking in the rain were the happiest for me." As he finished, she started crying, her tears mingling with the chilly rain. He held her tightly, feeling her small shoulders shake with grief. After a long silence, he finally asked, "Why didn't you ever want me to join you in the rain?" After a pause, she replied, "Because I didn't want you to realize that I was crying." Her answer, mixed with the sound of the rain, melted his heart with regret. He realized just how much she had loved him, with all her pain and turmoil, and he had unwittingly caused her heart to weep. It wasn't too late to make amends now that he understood the true depth of her love, all encompassed within the rain and tears. 39. Listening. Midnight. The phone rang, waking the mother from her sleep. As we all know, anyone hearing the phone ring at midnight would be annoyed, muttering as they checked the clock. But that night was different, and so was this mother. Midnight. Worries suddenly filled the mother's mind, and the mother answered, "Hello?" She immediately thought of her daughter. She gripped the phone tighter and looked at her husband, who was now awake, wondering who was calling. "Mom, is that you?" The voice on the phone was whispering, hard to tell the age, but clearly the caller was crying, very clearly. The whispering continued. "Mom, I know it's late, but don't say anything. Let me talk first. You don't need to ask me anything. Yes, I've been drinking. I just got off the freeway and—" Something was wrong. The mother tried to remain silent. "I'm really scared. I just thought, would it hurt you if a cop came to our door and said I died in a crash? I want to come home. I know. A daughter who runs away from home is really messed up. I know you might be worried. I should have called you days ago, but I was scared. I was scared." The mother held the phone tight, swallowing her sobs. She suppressed the pain in her heart. Her daughter's face appeared clearly before her. She also whispered, "I think—" "No, let me finish talking. Go on, Mom." The daughter's voice pleaded, now sounding like an unprotected child in despair. The mother paused, thinking about what to say next. The daughter continued, "I'm messed up, Mom. I ran away from home. I know I shouldn't drink like this, but I'm really scared, Mom, really scared." The voice on the other end broke off with sobs. The mother covered her mouth, tears in her eyes. Her hand touched the phone receiver, making a click sound, sounding like she was about to hang up, causing the daughter to urgently say, "Mom, are you still listening? Please don't hang up. I need you. I feel so alone." "I'm here. I won't hang up," the mother said. "Mom, I should have talked to you. I know I should have, but whenever you talk to me, you always tell me what to do. You say you've read all the psychology books and know how to raise me, but all you do is make me listen. You don't listen to me. You never let me tell you how I feel. It's like my feelings don't matter. Is it because you think you're my mom and you have all the answers? But sometimes I don't need answers. I just need someone to listen." The mother was silent. She looked at the psychology books on her bedside table. "I am listening to you," the mother whispered. "Mom, when I was on the freeway, I couldn't control the car anymore. I saw a big tree blocking the road. I wanted to crash into it, but I felt like I was hearing you teach that you shouldn't drive after drinking. So I stopped here. Mom, I still want to come home." The girl paused. "I'm coming home now. Let me come home, okay?" "No." The mother quickly interrupted, her body freezing. "Stay right there. I'll call a taxi to pick you up. Don't hang up. Keep talking to me while you wait for the taxi." "But I want to come home now, Mom. Please do this for me. Wait for the taxi," the mother pleaded. The daughter fell silent. It was terrifying, not hearing her respond. The mother closed her eyes, praying silently while the father called a taxi. The daughter remained silent for a long time but didn't hang up, and neither did the mother. "The taxi's here, Mom!" The daughter's voice suddenly brightened, and the sound of a car stopping could be heard. The mother felt a wave of relief. "I'm coming home now, okay?" There was a click, possibly the sound of hanging up a mobile phone. Then silence. The mother stood up, tears blurring her vision. She walked into the room of her 16-year-old daughter. The father followed, asking, "Do you think that girl realized she dialed the wrong number?" The mother looked at her sleeping daughter in bed and replied, Maybe she didn't dial wrong after all. What are you guys doing? The sleepy voice of her daughter rose as she opened her eyes and saw her parents by her bed. We're practicing, the mother replied. Practicing what? The girl mumbled, almost falling back asleep. Practicing listening, the mother whispered, gently stroking her daughter's hair. 40. Unconditional, fatherly love. When I was just learning to walk, my family faced tough times, leading my parents to separate as their love for each other had faded. I lived with my mom and only got to see my dad twice a year. Those times were the happiest for me. Dad taught me how to swim, to row a boat around various islands, and to drift on the calm sea. He tried to do everything I wanted, as if that was his way to make up for lost time with his little child. From the age of 12, I no longer went on outings with my dad. When I turned 14, my mom remarried, and then began a period of suffering and unhappiness for us. My stepdad often abused my mom, sometimes even sending her to the emergency room. One day, I heard the clatter of dishes breaking glass, followed by my stepdad yelling and hitting my mom. I ran downstairs to see him drunk, slumping in a chair, while my mom lay collapsed on a couch. Seeing me, I knew I was next in line for that horrible beating. So, I ran out the door to escape that dark house. I reached a public phone booth and called my dad. Dad, please help Mom and me. I don't know what to do. I pleaded over the phone, hoping to hear him say, Honey, wait for me. I'll be right there. But to my utter disappointment, he apologized, saying he couldn't come. My heart felt heavy and I was angry at him. With no money, no relatives to turn to, and no one to ask for help, I decided never to return to that house. In my desperation, I remembered a friend of my mom and ran to her for help finding a job to support myself. That's when I started my independent life. 3 months later, I still hadn't contacted my dad, and every time I thought of him, my heart ached. The memory of him abandoning us when I was most frightened still haunted me. Then one day, I got news that my dad was dying and wanted to see me. I visited him and saw him lying in bed, frail and weak. Seeing him like that, I couldn't hold back my tears. It turned out, my dad had been suffering from a severe illness that was slowly consuming his life. That's why he couldn't come to me when I needed help. I deeply regretted not caring for him all this time. I only needed him when I demanded things, without realizing that he also needed my care and comfort. Dad touched my cheek and said, I know you've suffered a lot, but I couldn't help you. All I wanted to say was, Honey, wait for me. I'll be right there. But I couldn't. I burst into tears. Dad caressed my hair and comforted me. In that moment, I felt the full extent of his love for me, unchanged from when I was a child. Friends, a parent's love for their children is boundless and everlasting, but we don't always fully understand it. There will be times when we feel resentful because our parents can't meet our expectations, but behind that may lie touching stories like the one we just heard. Always love and care for your parents, because no matter what happens, their love for you remains constant. 41. The hat and the shoes. A worn-out hat and an old pair of shoes lay discarded on a street corner. The old shoes spoke to the torn hat. Hello, dear friend. I recognize you. We used to work together at a fashion store. Don't you remember? The torn hat looked down on the old shoes disdainfully. Who are you to call me a friend? I belong to the upper class while you are from the lower class. Why are you so arrogant? It's just the truth. People place me on their heads respectfully. And you? You're always under people's feet. As soon as the hat finished speaking, a street sweeper came and swept them both into the trash bin.
If you like this video, please comment 1. And if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.